Hey guys, hello all, and welcome to the Brave Sound podcast. Today we have two very special guests, Adam Cordero and Odin Scherer. Before I introduce them, let me back up a moment and explain what the show is about. This is the show where we uncover the stories, processes, and worldviews behind some of New York City's most creative and artful musicians. So, I want to just introduce our two guests today before we begin. Saxophonist, composer, educator, environmentalist, and multi-instrumentalist Adam Cordero is based in Brooklyn, New York. He has two projects going on, a duo project with Odin Scherer, as well as a quintet, and both groups are quite environmentally conscious. His quintet, Arcadia, holds fall and spring benefit concerts, and they helped raise money for the Amazon rainforest and Australian wildlife, respectively. Adam is currently a senior pursuing a BFA degree at the New School for Jazz and Contemporary Music. Odin Scherer is a guitarist, composer, and improviser from Katona, New York. At the age of 22, he is now based in Brooklyn, New York as well. His diverse research interests include West African and Cuban folkloric music, wildlife and ecosystems, Black American music, and Impressionist classical music and visual art. He also has poetry published in Volume 9 of 11 and a half Eugene Lang College's Literary Journal. Odin plans to graduate from the New School this spring with a BFA in jazz guitar performance. And for our listeners out there, you may be wondering, how can I hear these guys play? They released their debut album in October on Bandcamp titled Ashland, a very environmentally conscious work, and 50% of the proceeds are donated to the Latino Community Foundation's California Wildlife Relief Fund. And, drumroll please, they will be holding a live stream concert this Sunday at 3 p.m. for you guys to enjoy. So, go to bravesound.org/shop for more information about this.
Yeah.
So, it's a pleasure to have you guys on the show. Thank you so much for coming on. And I first off, I want to say that I really enjoyed your album. I've been checking it out and on Bandcamp. And yeah, I really want to start off with that and talk to you guys about how this came to be a project with a duo project that you guys have. And yeah, if we could start with that, that'll be great.
Totally. Thanks for having us, first and foremost. Incredibly appreciative to be here and be doing all this stuff. So Ashland, wow. I'm sitting in my apartment in like the dead of the beginning of this deadly, crazy thing, quarantine and all this. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I miss playing with Odin, just because it's been so long. You know, at this point it's probably 2 months in, around April. I was thinking about this and I was like, man, what if I just went to Odin's place and we just like cut a record? What if we just did this, you know? Because it's always been on my mind that I wanted to cut a record, you know? And sometime while I was in college too, not before I exited. And it kind of came to be just because we've been playing so much music, original music over the years at the New School. And, you know, we played this instrumentation pretty often, actually, at the Walker Hotel, which is a gig that the New School provided us, which is awesome, prior to the pandemic and all that. And we had a pretty steady thing going there, and we'd been doing that for like 2 years. So we'd already played together a good deal, and we would always, you know, prepare originals, prepare standards, stuff like that. And we'd play together a good deal, and I was thinking to myself, this would be a pretty perfect opportunity to get together with one person, not a big group, you know, to keep it somewhat safe in the pandemic and all, and raise money for something that I thought that was really devastating going on at the same time. And we just had a plethora of music to record, so we felt like it would be a cool thing to do. Yeah.
So a lot of the titles I really liked a lot just because they fit the nature theme so well. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the particular titles, like one in particular, the first one, Apricity. I think that's how you pronounce it, right? So
Yeah.
I was looking it up because I was like, what does this word mean? And it says warmth of sun in winter. So maybe you could give a little meaning behind that and the other ones.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I'll start and then Odin can definitely take over. For me, Apricity, that tune, to me at least, it's exactly what you said. It's the warmth of the sun in the winter, and I was thinking about how I love that feeling, and how it just really makes me happy, and that's kind of what inspired me to write the tune. And then as I continued writing, it had this kind of melancholy thing about it at the same time. It seems to me, at least, it feels very happy, and I think a lot about the emotions when composing that the listener would experience. To me, at least, that song starts in a pretty happy fashion, and then the bridge becomes a little bit more intense, and things kind of escalate. And by the time that we arrive at the ending, it's almost like, wait, we're here? And this is because it's just supposed to almost arise the feeling of question and mystery, being that the rising temperature of our sun, during the winter time, especially in New York. This year it's been wild. At least, I remember I'm here in Long Island, and I'm here in Brooklyn all the time, and I'm just outside, and it's 60 degrees in December, and I'm like, wow, how is that chill? How is nobody freaking out?
It's not good for snow resorts, I tell you that.
No, not at all. And to me, it freaks me out, and the more that I was writing that tune, I felt bittersweet, and that's what I kind of wanted to capture in that one. But yeah, it's about the warmth of our sun and how it might be a problem. So.
Yeah. Well, that is a beautiful tune, and it is the shortest tune on the record, which it kind of goes with what you were saying before about kind of making it a question and leading people to think what's next. Also, the next tune, Arcturus. So you're talking about the star, right? So that's an astrology reference? Astronomy reference.
Yeah, I suppose that wasn't the exact intention behind it. I wrote that tune maybe spring semester my sophomore year, so a couple years ago now, and I believe I'm remembering this correctly. It was at a moment where I was missing my family, and my younger brother's middle name is actually Arcturus. So that's why, hence Arcturus.
Very nice. And also, there's 3 other tunes, all called Blossom. Maybe you could talk a little bit about why the same name, just like part 1, part 2, part 3 on the record.
Sure, absolutely, yeah. I mean, this too, I titled these tunes this just out of my pure love of, it sounds so girly, but I love flowers. And I love walking around forests and beaches and anywhere that I can, and just seeing the strangest thing, the strangest flower, taking a picture of that, going home and writing a tune. Or just being with it literally and writing the tune in front of the flower or in front of just nature in general. I write the first one that that Blossom #1. That one is a pretty old tune of mine too. Also, I think second half of my sophomore year at the new school. I wrote that just sitting on a beach and looking at this one wilting flower, and then from there, I was okay. I love that tune for me was one when I was all right, I like what I'm doing now. I want to keep doing this. So hence Blossom 2 happened, and then Blossom 3 as well. And it just all kind of went together of just literally me looking at pictures on the internet and just pictures that I would take myself on my phone, or just if I couldn't sit there and I didn't have my notebook, I would just take a picture and just keep going. And that's kind of been what I've been doing recently the most, just looking at visions and visual art and then transmitting that to some sort of written out thing.
I love this idea of the beauty of nature inspiring your art, because it's something I relate to a lot. I've done a lot of similar ideas where I've just gone out for long bike rides or big outdoor adventures and just come back so inspired and by the beauty of what is just around us. And it's also when we interviewed Arcturus, who you guys probably know from the new school, huh? She was also very, very observant of that feeling as well. Can you guys talk about when did this start for you? When did you start becoming, because I think when you're a kid, you don't really care so much about at least I didn't, especially growing up in the city. I wasn't oh, I love nature. But as as time goes on, we tend to appreciate something like the warmth of the sun in the winter or blossoms or something. Could you guys elaborate on these?
Well, I actually have kind of always had an interest in the woods and nature and wildlife and all that. My both of my parents will uh, reminisce on when I was a young lad, and I would have to bring the like Audubon guide to mushrooms with me whenever we went hiking. Whenever we saw mushrooms, I'd have to identify what it was when I was like 4 or 5. I don't know how young, but really young.
Wow.
And that's sort of continued up until now. I mean, there's a local nature preserve right near where my family's from in Westchester that I've kind of been monitoring their population of this one particular species of snake. There's a lake sort of at the end of the trail where every summer they have a breeding population of snakes, and I just like to go and like make sure that I see like 4 or 5 healthy females and all that, and I always do, which is awesome. Yeah, I feel like if we all were more in tune with nature and maybe lived more like us as humans are actually a member of the ecosystem, and that we care for those other species in our ecosystem like we can care for each other as humans, that things would be improved.
Yeah, what a beautiful message. Adam, did you also keep track of snakes?
I wish I was that cool. No, we both, I was going to say, we both were actually deep into gemstones when we were kids, which is something that I was like deep into, having like this huge book of each like gemstone, like knowing what all stones were. I had a collection, that stuff to me, it still carries. I have yet to write tunes about rocks, but I'm like so ready. To be more excited.
You should, bro. You should.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, what was the composition process like on, like, for your record? Because something that struck out with me about the compositions was how elaborate the arrangements of it were, and I think that's attributed partly just to being a duo, and you guys can have so much conversational language in between you guys. There's a lot of freedom with that. And yeah, it's something I noticed is how intricate they are. So, like, what's your process behind that?
Well, I think, at least for me, it was almost something that, well, it was definitely something that came naturally, but it almost felt like a necessity, because a lot of the music that I write anyway, or that I had written by the time we were recording this record, they're all like relatively short forms, especially Arcturus is just, I don't know how, it's like a 16 bar, maybe 12 bar thing, but it's the kind of thing where, like, to make it interesting, because there's so much rhythmic material, like the rates are going up and down all over the place in regards to the, like, how the pulse and subdivision relate, where it's like you kind of have to have something else interesting happening. Like, the form can't be the only thing that's interesting. The material can't be the only point of interest.
Yeah, well, specifically that one is very, it really transforms a lot, like metrically, I noticed as well. Yeah, I'm surprised to hear that, though, that they're such short forms, because I've only listened to it a few times, but it seems to be a lot more through compose than just 16 bars. So that's, yeah. So I'm kind of surprised by that. So was a lot of it improvisation?
Yeah, well, in that song in particular, I forget what our arrangement was. Maybe we had the melody like a couple times up front, and then we would just alternate improvising over the form. You take a chorus, I take a chorus, you take a chorus, I take a chorus, and then maybe we did the head once out. But it's It's something interesting with this instrumentation too, especially with music like that is like very rhythmic and where the form is very strict with the rhythms. In this instrumentation, at least for me, I find myself when I go to improvise over forms like that without anything behind me, I end up messing things up, or like some things are some measures are getting rounded over, and some things are sort of getting floated over, and then some landmarks are hit, and then some are sort of getting floated over again. And I feel like that adds to the vibe, so it's not all locked in, but it's sort of unintentional also. It's like I want to be able to do that, but it almost works out well when I'm unable to.
Mm.
Yeah, well, there's definitely more freedom in that kind of band setting. So I know what you mean, and I think that maybe in the moment it could be thought of as a mistake, but to the listener, like I wouldn't hear anything like that, and I would perceive it as a creative choice.
Mm.
So it could work nicely.
On the same topic, it feels like listening through, I was under the impression that most of it was not improvised.
Yeah.
So I think it shows that you guys are improvising in a way. Were you intentionally trying to sound compositional?
I think that's such a funny, and to me at least, such a compliment, because that's exactly how I think when I improvise. That's something that's pretty huge at the New School, actually. There's a class taught by Jane Eyre Bloom called Linear Composition. And also there's just a great composer named Kirk Newrock who I've studied pretty deeply with. And I feel as if more often, especially nowadays, and when we cut that record, I'm always in the mindset of composer rather than improviser.
Yeah.
But the two usually feed off of each other. I'm composing like an improviser and improvising like a composer. And the more that I feel like I can get towards that, I feel generally more satisfied with how I'm performing and how I'm playing. And I just like the general product more at the moment. This is how I'm feeling right now. But I feel like in a couple of years, who knows? I feel like I'm always going to be changing, and stuff is always going to be different.
Yeah.
But at the moment, that's definitely how I feel.
Well, this question is kind of out of left field a little bit, but hear me out.
For sure.
So I've also been trying to sound more compositional when I play and things, but I find a big part of the issue that I have when trying to do that is just kind of a lack of focus, right? So if I'm playing a solo that's like, say, 5 minutes long or longer, it's hard. It's actually quite hard to be so engaged. If you're trying to be compositional, then part of that is, what you play has to be related somewhat to what you just played, and and then the whole thing overall has some form into it. So the way I've started to deal with that is through meditation and through mindfulness and presence and stuff. And I kind of hear this mental focus on the record and in the way you guys are playing. So I wanted to ask you, both of you, if you do any type of meditation, or if presence is something you think about.
So a couple things come to mind for me. There's a drummer who I took lessons with for a while, Craig Weinrib.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if it was in a lesson that I took with him or in what I heard from somebody else that took a lesson with him, but he was telling somebody about how the practice should be ritualistic. Like the act of practicing your instrument should be almost like meditation, like phone not in the room unless you're using like a metronome, just no distractions at all, complete focus, complete presence there in the room with the instrument and with the material that you happen to be working on. So there's that, and that's something that I think about even now, and I heard this years ago.
Right.
And actually, recently, my girlfriend and I have started doing little morning meditations. There's this thing on Netflix now, the like Headspace guide to meditation.
Right,
it's
right.
This app for meditation, but it costs a bunch of money, I guess. but the Netflix series of it is really well done, and I would recommend it.
Yeah, that's been on the watch list as well. How about yourself, Adam?
For me, I also studied with Craig, and he kind of got me in a similar mindset.
Cool.
And that, I would say for me, practicing, especially at least doing long tones for me, is always meditative. It's like I may not start that way for the first 10 minutes, but then for the following like 20 or 30, it'll really start to become something different for me. And that's generally how I do it. Although soon I intend on actually doing focused meditation without the horn.
Yeah, let's talk. We can do this.
Yeah, I'm trying, because it requires so much more focus and so much more presence than one may think to just like, I never thought that I'd have to focus so much while playing with Odin.
Yeah.
Or just while playing music in general, blew my mind. And now that since probably around, again, like these past, quarantine months, that's when I would get into that state, when like the world is going crazy and I'm just like, I just need to chill and like play like F. So I think for me, it's just, I'd like to get way more into it just on like a solely like a meditation basis, but it just takes a lot of focus to really put the stuff together.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of focus, but also it's very scary.
Yeah.
Like the thought of spending some significant amount of time sitting and doing nothing and not thinking about what you need to do later that day is kind of anxiety inducing a little way, because you feel like, oh, there's all this stuff that's important and you need to be kind of productive all the time, and even like 10 to 30 minutes of just doing nothing, it kind of scares you. But I don't know. It's really helped me, and I only wish that I spend more time doing it, if anything at all. But in addition to that documentary on Netflix, Sam Harris has an app called Waking Up, and a lot of content about this subject for anybody who's interested in delving deeper. It's really changed my life, honestly.
Wow.
But Mike, have you heard of Craig before? Craig Weinrib?
Yes, I saw that both you guys had him on your bio, and I was looking him up because I was like, this name sounds familiar, but I haven't delved too deeply.
Yeah.
No.
Does he have any records out?
He doesn't have any out as a leader, no, but
Right.
he's a sideman on lots and lots of stuff.
Right. I saw him at the Gallery, that trio concert with Matt Brewer and Aaron Parks.
Yeah.
And it was him in particular was just incredibly mind-blowing. Definitely focus. He had like the sunglasses on, like super hunched over the drums. It really looks like there was nothing else in the world besides him and those two people he was sharing the stage with. And that was one of the best concerts I've seen in the city, for sure. It was awesome.
Yeah. It reminds me when I saw, I actually went to the Gallery for the release show of Sam Harris's Harmony record.
Oh, different Sam Harris.
Yeah.
The pianist.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. That's what I thought you were
I
talking
thought it
about.
was him,
Yeah.
too.
Oh, you guys were talking about
Yeah.
Ambrose
Yeah.
and no. Different Sam Harris, same name. Very, very different guy. But he's
Okay.
also a beautiful musician.
Should check it out. Yeah, I also saw that show when we were seeing Harmony. I don't know, he's just, to me, just one of the greatest musicians and also just an amazing person.
It was Sam Harris with Craig?
Yeah, Sam Harris, Martin Nevin, and Craig, right?
Wow.
Yeah, it's
It
an
was-
awesome record.
Yeah, it's on Bandcamp. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I have the record. I never knew it was Craig on it, but
Yeah.
I'll have to go back to that. But also, I want a big point in both of you guys' bios, the list of teachers. I mean, there's a lot of overlap, like Reggie Workman and Andrew Cyril, and it seems like a lot of the new school hovers around the same mentors. But what a list, honestly. Really, it's pretty wild. Could you guys talk about the influence that these various mentors have had on you?
Wow, what a question.
We could take them one by one. I know it's a lot.
I mean, because I could just talk about Reggie Workman for so long. I don't know.
Let's start
To
with
me,
Reggie.
Let's. I mean, I just love everything that he stands for and just is, in the sense that he really is. He has this vibe the second that he's in the classroom, and this intensity that is really unparalleled. I just love how there's this one time, I'll never forget it. We're just in the classroom and like we're playing. I think we could even be playing we're playing Iron Man, definitely. Is that Ornette? Is that right?
No, that's
Eric Dolphy.
Eric Dolphy.
Sorry. We're playing Iron Man by Eric Dolphy, and we're like improvising, and then he's just in the middle of the room going like this.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
stir it up.
oh my, like stir it up. Like, what does that even mean? You know? But like, I got it. You know? And I think everybody in the room knew what he was trying. Like, we all knew, and we were all just making like great music, and it was like a ton of fun. And you know, I'd taken that class. We'd taken like an improvisation ensemble, which is like, you know, like your combo that you like choose your friends to be in, etc., and then you play. And then I also took Coltrane ensemble with him, which was great before it went on Zoom. You know, once any class goes on Zoom after being in person, it was like, what? Nobody knew what to do. You know, it's a tough situation. But just prior, just the intensity and just how much he clearly knew the music and was like, no, it has to be like this. You know, there's this tune called Coltrane Time, where it's like, it's just numbers on the chart. And he would just be like, all right, this is how it goes. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, something like that, you know? And I was so intent on like getting it right, you know? It's just this whole chart of numbers and just groupings, and they have to be all done in a certain pacing, you know? And, you know, just the masterfulness of who he is, and just, you know, the intensity is just, it's great, you know. He's just a living legend, and, you know, I'm really thankful for the time that I had to spend with him in person, you know. He's just a great person and educator. Yeah.
Odin, do you have any Reggie experiences to share?
Yeah, well, so the ensemble in which Iron Man happened was an ensemble I was in also, but I was also in the standards ensemble with Reggie, and I mean, it's one thing playing your original music in front of Reggie Workman. It's kind of another thing to play standards in front of Reggie Workman, and like having his words and all, you know, just getting his advice and his input. I'm trying to remember some specific moments. I definitely think that working with him helped to like increase my intensity as an instrumentalist. I remember in high school, I sort of had like a Jim Hall vibe going on, and I don't know, like the facility on the instrument was not as high back then. But working with Reggie definitely encouraged me to up my facility and up the intensity of my like work regimen, so that when I show up to class, I can like really say what I want to over the songs.
Yeah, I definitely felt that too. Like, because you're playing in front of somebody with so many years behind them, and one of the most incredible like discographies ever.
Yeah.
And
no doubt.
I've listened to Reggie Workman so many times, like coming up, just like when I was listening to music in high school and then early college, and then I see him in the halls, and I'm like, oh my God, that's Reggie Workman. You know, it just kind of blew my mind for the longest time. You know, another this quick memory that I want to share. We were at Walker Hotel playing a gig. You know, and this is like I'll never forget this experience, because I never wanted to act the way that I did on that gig again after he told me like what he told me. So we're playing at Walker Hotel. We've got like this audience that's just like very like blasé, like drinking, talking, you know. And it's like, you know, like what are we gonna do to engage them? Like how we're just background music, right? And Reggie shows up and he's watching us play. And then he comes up to us after and he's like, why are you not engaging with the audience? Why aren't you talking? Why aren't you announcing the tunes? You know? He was like, background music, I don't know what that is, you know? And it's like, we had to make our music the focus, and then for like the remainder of the set, we would like at least make an effort, And then following that, I definitely felt the need. Okay, I need to engage the audience on a level, and like that's why was I not doing that and just calling this gig background music, Because even the Walker Hotel doesn't necessarily consider it that, They just say, new school jazz presenting like a duo or presenting something, like presenting music tonight, And then it's like, no, like I could absolutely involve them, but it was absolutely 100% my choice to just be like, no, we're just playing music and like they don't care, And he could see that immediately, and he listened to it, like, yeah, like sounds good, and then just like totally was like, but you got to engage the audience, And that made me just think a lot after that. But just like the kindness to just show up to our gig when he just saw us like rehearsing in like a little practice room for a second, He was like, oh, you guys playing? And it was like, we're like, yeah, like we are, we're gonna play like across the street in like an hour or two, if you want to come. And it's like, yeah, I'll stop by. Like, never in my mind did I think that would happen,
Right.
And then he shows up and I'm like scared like to the bone, and I'm like, oh my god, like he's like Reggie Workman is watching me. I'm freaking out, But I definitely, his words definitely still like speak to me and like resonate with me today. So.
I think that's something that a lot of us, I mean, I definitely have that same experience happen. I was doing a corporate gig for a while, and Austin was actually on that gig for a bit too, and the same thing. I just felt like it was background music, and there wasn't, or I shouldn't engage with the audience of people that are watching. But I think what you were saying, it's true. It's all about the mentality and the attitude you put into it. And some guys that I see perform, like Benny Benack, for instance, is like one of the best like jazz musician presenters I've seen.
Yeah, no doubt.
Absolutely.
Able to entice the crowd and make everyone have a good time. And it takes experience and time doing it. It's not like everyone that's like born is all of a sudden an amazing entertainer and stuff, but that's something that's so true, and it's nice to hear that Reggie helped influence that for you guys.
What's funny too is that Reggie also has recorded, and I've heard him play some of the most like abstract and like maybe I might go as far as saying like audience isolating music I've ever heard in my life, but it seems like he knows that, I guess, a time and place for that, or I'm not sure. I'm not sure where he draws the distinction, because I've seen him do like play over drones for like 2 hours and not say anything, and it was very transformative and beautiful. Of course, it's interesting thought, because he's just a very complex figure, and especially to hear him say that about your hotel gig, makes me think.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting, because like I never thought to be like, oh yeah, we're gonna play this, and like we just say, like when they clap we say thank you, and then like this one, and then like we're like just play the next song. But how about saying this one's called, or like this is an original by, or anything, just something as small as that is like stuff that he was kind of like encouraging us to do, just because it's tiny, but like it makes a difference, and it's also just how you look when you're playing, I realized that when I was the new school has something called the gig office, where it's like you audition, and then after that they just give you a bunch of like nice gigs, which is really, really great. But one of the comments, I think the only comment that they gave me, I passed the audition, which was great, but then they're like, but you can't look bored when you play, and that still sticks to me now. Like I feel like I look sad, depressed, and a lot of musicians too, when I see them play, they just look, at least jazz musicians, sad, depressed, or like they're on top of the world, It's like I rarely see like an in-between, as I think. But it's like I'm trying to work on that. I'm not good at that. I look pretty cold-faced, but I'm trying to involve, in whatever way I can, even if it's just during Odin solo, if I'm just looking like this the whole time, it's like nobody. How is the audience going to feel about that? Is he sad?
I think that it's so acceptable in jazz clubs for musicians to not have any facial expression or anything, or just because some instrumentalists play like that, but the audience there doesn't give two shits about how you look. They're just there for the music. But once you go into corporate worlds theme park worlds, like cruise ship type gigs, or even like large concerts for more so the general public, then that appearance becomes such a larger factor. So yeah, I've definitely experienced similar things. And like doing this theme park gig, the jazz musicians on the theme park gig had the hardest time adapting to make sure you smile when you play and look happy, and the other guys, like the musical theater people that were on the gig, had no problem transferring their skills there into another line of work like that. So yeah, it's interesting. Also, it made me think when you were saying that about Ashland, your album. So I think that it's nice that you have such a, like for instance, how you donate half the proceeds to a wildfire relief fund. That gives people such a greater story backline behind it, like, and even having the context of you guys talking about some of the songs just now, it adds so much more to the meaning behind listening, other than just abstract music. Because if it was just track A, track B, track C, then, it's like, what is there to it? But I mean, now I know this context behind it, and it brings so much more meaning to it. So it is so important to have that meaning behind music, because it can be abstract.
I think like the whole thing about looking stoic versus not looking bored when you play, I think it's deeper than just appearance and looks. I think it also, like Mike was hinting at, it really contributes to the conveyance of emotion or story to an audience, or whether that be at a club or the digital audience that is purchasing an album or something. It's very important for us to grow. I think about a lot. It's important for us to make it easier for people to understand what we're doing, easier for people to share what we're doing, easier for people to be involved with what we're doing. And I think we can be, especially as jazz artists, we can be in our own compositional world, our own physical world. Like, we only hang out in certain places, or we only hang out with certain people so much that we just really don't even understand how what we're doing fits into the bigger picture. So I'm so super glad to bring in artists like yourselves who have clearly other interests. And speaking of other interests, Odin, your bio really struck me too, because, like, wow, you have poetry published, and you said you were a fan of like impressionist visual art, and clearly quite an outdoorsman as well. Talk to me about some of these many diverse passions in your life.
Well, so y'all have already heard a little bit about the nature interest. Maybe I'll speak about the artwork a little bit.
Please.
So my late grandfather on my mom's side was a prolific visual artist who was never recognized for it. Like, he never made a lot of money off of it. But so my grandmother on my mom's side lives in Austin, Texas, and her house is just full of his artwork, and his studio is exactly the way that he left it before he died. So there's like an unfinished work on the canvas, and there's paint stains all over the floor, and the room just has shelves full, and there's another room in the house, shelves on all the walls full of artwork. And they have a storage unit in Austin that is full of artwork.
Wow.
And my cousin on my mom's side lives in Switzerland and works at this international gallery, and she's like trying to get his artwork known. But I just kind of feel like, it's like a family thing. It's like I feel like I've always been around really interesting artwork, because it's at my dad's house and my mom's house. But when I was younger, it was in the house all over the place. And here actually in my apartment we have like 5 or 6 of his works up on the walls. But yeah, it's just sort of inspiring always when I go down to Austin to see the kind of output and like the creative opus that he made. And it's like it's something that I aspire to as a musician, to like follow through with my art, even if it's not recognized. So like just output and output and output.
And what was he doing professionally if he wasn't making any money from his creative work?
I want to say he was in insurance. I think
Wow.
he worked at like the MetLife building in New York City for a while. But yeah, if I remember correctly, he was a man of many things. Like I think he almost went to school on scholarship to play clarinet, and I think he also did ballet dance for a while. So, just like an artsman.
Yeah.
But yeah,
rising family.
him and my grandfather, him and my grandmother, I think met here or in Europe somewhere, but they lived in Italy for a while. We're just like slumming it in Italy for a couple of years so he could learn how to sculpt marble. Maybe at some point I could share a link with you guys, but on his
Please,
website
yeah.
there are images of his marble carvings, and I've seen them in person, and they're incredible. Like very, accurate, like physical representations of humans and all
Wow.
that.
And does his paintings also have that kind of realism thing to it, or are they different?
A lot of his work is really abstract. Like he's got a whole bunch of different series. He did a series just on moons, but they're very abstract, and he has some works that are humans, but most of them are abstract and impressionist. Like he was definitely a person that emphasized learning from the history of like those who came before you. So like he's got some work that looks like Van Gogh. He's got some work that looks like Monet.
Wow.
And some others too.
How
Yeah.
applicable to the type of study typically jazz musicians do too, huh?
Exactly, and that's another thing. He often, and as my mom will reminisce about sometimes, he would often just listen to music. He would listen to jazz or to classical music and just throw ink on the canvas, throw paint on the canvas. He's got a whole series of paintings called Improvs, which I think were probably all done while he was listening to music.
Wow. That's kind of similar to what you were doing, Adam, right? With looking at a photo or taking a photo and then writing music,
Yeah.
but in reverse.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that. Yeah, I mean, because even now, like it's funny you brought up Monet. I was sharing this piece that I did for a class. It's like a pretty extensive like orchestral work of like 3 of Monet's paintings. So I'm just starting to get into that. I've always been interested in visual art, but I definitely don't know nearly as much as Odin does. I can just look at it and be like, I like that. But no, I was taking this class actually called Art and Politics of the Earth at the New School. And that's basically where anything that I know about art comes from. So I learned about earth art, which is kind of interesting, and other artwork just based around nature and all like and the politics like around that, meaning like all the science and like all the stuff that's actually happening with climate change. But I think mainly like for me it just comes down to like I look at something and I'm like there's always something to see, and I've never been to a museum and been like that was what is this, there's always something that I find interesting or captivating, and I feel like whatever I can go off of musically is like what I will, so I guess I suppose it is similar in reverse. Never really thought about that. But yeah, Odin's grandfather is super heavy though. I mean, like you gotta check out the artwork later.
Yeah, would love to someday.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk about just why you two decided to make a career out of music, but the reason I'm asking is it's just so funny that somebody who's like Odin's grandfather, who's working 9 to 5 in an insurance building, had the drive and the kind of necessity to paint in those hours from, like, I don't know, 5 to 10, or before going to work in the morning, who or the weekends, I guess. And that was so important to him that he was clearly doing it consistently, to where you have storage units full of paintings, and that's just so inspiring that he was able to produce so much even without the professional tag. And now I believe all of us are doing music in some full-time fashion. Talk about the decisions that made you not go into insurance or law or something and say, like, I need to make creativity and art my career.
Dang. For me, I mean, I think I'm going to go like a little bit further even back, just like when I was like growing up and such.
Yeah.
Because it all starts with like my great school district, and my great parents, honestly. My dad was listening to music. My dad's a great pianist and organist, has perfect pitch, and like totally like unique out of the family. He's the only member of the entirety of my family that had music. And it's because my great aunt would just play records for him when he was really, really young. And then from there, he just, like, there was one day, my aunt was just playing Liszt on the
End
piano,
stream.
and she just...
Welcome to live chat.
Excuse me.
Oh boy.
Remember to guard your privacy.
Sorry.
You're all
I'm
good.
replying to comments, and I guess I somehow enabled voice. Please continue.
Sure. My aunt was playing, it was Liszt on the piano, and she just couldn't do it. My dad just hops on, doesn't even have the music in front of him, he's just playing it all right. And then
Wow.
it's just freakish. Point is, I got this, I feel like I definitely inherited something from my dad, but then the school district I went to totally shaped how I had a great music program at Herrick's. Shout out to Herrick's. I started on clarinet, then bass clarinet the following year, then bassoon 2 years after that.
Right.
And all these instruments I kept with me. And to me, that's all I was doing in those years that like really captivated me, besides like retro video games, which doesn't really have a future. Besides like a great collection, which I may sell one day.
Oh.
But no, I don't know. I love the stuff still. I'm having trouble. But anyway, it's like they just pushed me and pushed me and pushed me. And then I joined jazz band in my middle school years, playing clarinet, then soprano saxophone, then baritone. Then I got a tenor, and then I landed on alto in 10th grade. Yeah, weird path. And then I was just playing all these classical pieces, playing in orchestras, doing all these like programs and stuff. Actually, even at one point, Austin, fun fact, I remember I'm pretty sure I saw you. You're playing in like Jazz Band of America at one point. I was playing in the Honor Orchestra of America.
No
Same time,
way.
When my senior year. Yeah, I was playing bass clarinet, and they were doing like West Side Story. And it
Wow,
was,
did
like,
we
so
meet
fun.
back then? And
No, definitely not. I'm pretty sure I was like, dang, he sounds really good. And then I was like moving on with my day. I was
Right.
like, I wish I made that band, but then no, in high school I was not happening.
And what
But-
say that again? What you were playing bass clarinet?
Yeah, I was playing bass clarinet for like an orchestral version of like West Side Story. And, like, all
Wow.
these different things. And it was super fun. And I was like doing like the Honor Orchestra of America and like Honor Band of America, like bass clarinet and some bassoon. And then jazz kind of came up almost at the last second in high school. I was like, my dad used to play me Art Blakey in the car all the time when I was like a kid. But then as I got older, I started just listening to Dexter Gordon one day in 9th grade. And just from there, I just listened to the record go, and I just didn't stop. You know? And since then, it was just like, I have to pursue this. And even weirder, in kindergarten, my like, you know, like, I want to be an astronaut. I want to be like a doctor. I want to be a jazz musician, is what I said. No idea why. No clue. But I literally have like this piece of paper from when I'm in kindergarten that says, I want to be a jazz musician, just because I thought it was cool or something.
I wanted
And,
to be a
like-
garbage man.
Did you really, Mike?
Yeah, I have it written in
Oh my god.
my
Awesome.
like 5-year-old handwriting.
It was great.
Or sanitation worker, but I said garbage man.
Oh, God. That's great.
I'm sure your
Anyway.
teachers were very enthralled.
Yeah, they were thrilled. point is, it was always kind of instilled in me that I was going to do music, and this was just kind of what happened. And I was fortunate to have all these students given to me from the school district. Like while I was in school, like while I was in high school, I would get like elementary school students, middle school students, and I just built that up. And at this moment, that's doing me pretty well, and I'm just trying to keep that going as best I can to support the rest of the art.
Yeah.
I'm lucky to be having online lessons and such, and just between that, making this great album, which I'm super proud of, and just all this other stuff, it's kind of how I just landed on, like, I've got to do this, for the greater, at this point now, for me, it's for humanity. It's for the greater good of people.
Right,
people just
right.
feeling happy and feeling good. I just want to give that, and I want to give it back to the world in the best way that I can, the most direct way I possibly can. And that's what music means to me the most now. So to me, there's no option. There's almost no choice. For me at the moment, it's pretty intense, but that's kind of how I'm feeling about it. Yeah.
Beautiful. So in addition to those great examples, like your band directors and your band teachers and your father, can you, I know it's hard to put it into words, but I would love to hear you try as
Sure.
like what music was providing you growing up that the other subjects weren't.
Definitely. Surprisingly, I honestly think it's not too hard for me to put into words. It's just that's where it's where I fit. It's where I felt best. It's where I felt my strongest. It was what made me weird, It was what I could do that I felt other people in my district weren't doing. Owen's taking care of a cat situation right now.
All right.
But it made me generally just feel like, okay, I'm not going to go into like STEM, like the whole like engineering thing, but like all my friends were doing,
Yeah.
So, and I like that it differentiated me, and more importantly, I liked how it made me feel. It made me feel genuinely happy, and it still does, And I think that's something that's really undervalued today. Just being a musician and then being happy, it doesn't seem to go together for a lot of people.
That's true.
But for me, I mean, it's like that's what I crave. I live for those moments of just absolute, we all know, like when we're playing sometimes, I don't know, just this feeling, just this rush of just euphoria or just rush of just happiness, etc. And I feel like I'm just chasing after that feeling, and it makes me happy, and it just makes me feel like it's what I should be doing more and more. Yeah, I think that answers it, I hope.
Is it kind of like almost like a junkie chasing a high, a musical high?
Almost. I mean, I can't go there, but it's like just the general state of just happiness. I can't fight it, And those moments are always great, but I mean, I don't live for those moments. I think I just live to be satisfied and happy with what I'm doing, and I think that music fulfills that the best for me.
Yeah, great. Odin, did you want to take a step? Oh yeah, you want to jump in, Mike?
If Odin has anything to say on this topic, I wanted to bring up something else. But Odin, if you have anything to share about your musical
well,
upbringing.
I mean, definitely some similarities between myself and Adam with that. My parents exposed me to a lot of great music when I was young. They will often talk about how when I was like maybe 3, maybe younger, every time that I would get in the car with them to go somewhere, I would cry if they didn't put on this Jimmy Smith record. So when I was like a very young boy, I needed to listen to Jimmy Smith.
Jimmy Smith. That's
I needed Jimmy Smith.
Which record?
Like Wes Montgomery or.
Honestly, I don't remember, but yeah, it might have been one of the ones with Wes.
That's so funny to me, man.
Yeah. But yeah, both my parents are hobbyist musicians too, so they encouraged me to get into it, and I actually started on piano when I was like 8, and also around then I started playing upright bass in the orchestra in elementary school, and I stuck with that all the way through high school. It was like first chair in symphonic orchestra or whatever it was. And I really only got into the guitar seriously when I was like a sophomore in high school.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it was super late for me too. Like I was way late in the game when I was trying to get it together. Like it was my senior year, and I was like, shoot, okay, I've got to. In like my junior year, I'm just like rushing everything. Like I was super lucky. Mike and I played together in like the New York like all-state band when we were seniors. But like I hadn't done like a jazz like NISMA or like the evaluation thing to get into that until that year. You know, it was my first time. All of it just came together super last minute for me. You know, it was really. I felt like this huge weight on me in those years. Like, oh shoot, I need to. Everybody's like auditioning for like Grammy band, and I'm like, I can't play an F blues, you know. You know, I just remember that when I was in high school, especially, I felt this urgency to be like, yeah, I gotta get into it fast, you know. And I just had to work really hard. But yeah, my jumping off point was the Jamie Aebersold like jazz camp when I was in 10th grade, and it, you know, that was a great place for me to get started, and from there I was just inspired to just keep going as far as I could.
Because you guys both kind of started later in the game than a lot of people do on your current instruments.
In some ways.
Yeah, on your current instruments, because you guys both have very musical backgrounds as well. But technically speaking, I mean, Adam, you were just saying how you had felt like you had a lot of pressure, you know, going right before, like towards the end of your high school career, to decide what you wanted to do more so. So is there any advice you guys could give to people that maybe think that it's too late to learn an instrument, or yeah.
I mean, if we're talking about somebody of any age, I would just say, like, if it's something that you care about and that you want to see improvement in, then consistency is important. But you can't really have consistency if you don't enjoy what you're doing. So,
Sure.
like, find some aspect of it that really speaks to you and inspires you, and focus on that. Really work hard on it. If it's for somebody young who's, like, maybe in the situation that we were, where it's like you feel like you're maybe at a disadvantage, I mean, for somebody younger than that, I would just say manage your time and prioritize and, like, think ahead. Because if I knew when I was in, like, elementary school that this is what I would be doing now, I would have definitely asked my parents for the right instrument and, you know, spent my my hours on it more.
Yeah, I could say something similar. I mean, I feel like, especially, I guess, first of someone that was in like our position, I would just say, because you know what, like it's true that like I wish I was on an alto saxophone like way earlier, you know, and I wish I was listening to the stuff like maybe like 3 years earlier. But you know what, everything happens for a reason, and I feel like what happened to me was like for the best. It forced me to work hard, you know. So I guess my best advice is just, you can do it. It just takes a lot of work, you know, and you're gonna be behind other people, and like that's just the way that it is, because you'll get there. You know, everybody's writing their own thing, and like the pressure is not necessary. You know, all the negative self-talk and all the comparison and like all the compare and despair stuff, like it's not worth it. It's just not worth it at all, and you could just be spending that time improving instead. You know, I was definitely one to compare and despair when I was like in high school, no doubt. You know,
It's
and I was
funny,
like,
Greg
yeah.
used the same two words
Negative
yeah?
self-talk.
when we were talking about negative self-talk and compare and despair. So I just thought
Oh,
that was
yeah?
interesting. Yeah, he said those two exact phrases.
Wow. I mean, I like erase that in all my students as soon as I can, just because like I see them, they mess up, and then, oh dang it, you know, and I'm just like, no, like chill, you're gonna be fine.
I need you as my
can do
teacher,
this.
Adam. Teach me.
No, absolutely not. You teach me. But no, it's just like I've got to tell them, because like they would get so upset if they played this thing wrong, you know. And it's like, and we're working on either like a NISMA solo, or we're working on like their favorite song or something, and like just because that's what makes them happy. Like if I transcribe like a theme song from like a TV show or something, or like something they like, then they're more inspired to practice. But I see it so early, I'm like, you cannot do this, you know. And then I think it generally just creates like, first, the education that I have that I'm giving them, it just feels better to them immediately, because then they don't feel like it's such a high pressure thing. I would just say, just even on any student in general, just don't do it. It can be so easy. Especially like now at this age, it's especially easy. We have Instagram, we have Facebook, we have all these things that are just like, hey, look at these people that are killing that are not you.
Exactly.
And it just ruins total self-confidence. But I mean, the more that I feel, the more that confidence that you have in yourself, which is what I'm trying to get to. I mean, it's like, I'm proud of where I am right now, and I can say that with like full confidence, and I feel like not a lot of people could.
Yeah.
Just because they feel like, and yes, I'm still have so many goals, and I'm far from knowing everything. I'm not trying to be like I'm super cocky and I've like got everything together. No way. I'm so far, but I know that at least through in my journey, I need to be loving, and I can't destroy myself, because I have in the past, and it never did me well. Like a story from like when I'm in 7th grade doing clarinet in ISMA level 5, and like I finished my solo. I'm like screaming in the hallway, like literally screaming at myself, screaming at my mom. My mom will definitely remember this if she's watching. I would just go crazy. Like I threw the music on the floor. I was about to throw the clarinet on the floor, but then I didn't. And then I was like, I was furious. And then I got the score back, and that was like 1 point wrong. So it was like, why do we do this if what we're doing is generally like in a good direction?
Yeah.
And if we're trying to get better, we shouldn't just be like we suck. It's just not worth it. But that's how I felt for a lot of college, and it's how I felt for a lot of high school. But that's my advice: is don't do that to yourself, and just work harder instead. Yeah.
Well, side note, is Bill Scherer your dad, Odin? He's watching, and he mentioned that that Jimmy Smith record is called .com Blues.
Yes, that's it.
Which I think is awesome. We can all check it out and see what 3-year-old Odin was listening to.
Yeah, there we go.
But then coming back to this talk about, kind of the mental psyching we tend to do as musicians and as artists, I imagine there was a lot of insecurity, or at least some insecurity associated with being kind of late in the game, relatively, not even really. I mean, first of all, this whole idea that we need to be killing musicians by the time we're 18 and auditioning for a college is already a fallacy to begin with. But given that myth exists, at what point did each of you start to feel like, I belong here, and I don't want to say as good as anybody else, but like I can hang and I can say something valid with my peers who have been doing this for years longer than you?
I think I remember. I don't think there was a moment where it was like before it I didn't feel like that, and after I felt like that. But a moment that helped anyway was I think it was it was definitely my senior year in high school. The last time going to the Berklee College of Music High School Jazz Festival.
Okay.
And playing in a trio, and we came in second place for the group, and myself and the bass player both won individual awards. And actually, I was recently looking on the website, and Adam was there.
Such a small world.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also got an award, I think, the same year.
Yeah.
It was pretty crazy. And like that, for me also, it's a pretty pivotal moment. But
yeah. Well, it was like I had never received any recognition like that, any award of something like that in front of a larger audience like that before. I had also never really been evaluated like that before in a setting where I'm really exposed. That was my first time do it, because I never did the NYSMA or anything like that. I never did any of those all American. I don't know what any of that is, because I never was in any of it in high school or earlier. So that was really my first time getting individual evaluation, and to hear something that wasn't negative was really encouraging.
Yeah.
I'm kind of the same. It was that was, I think, I can't remember if it was my junior or senior year of high school, but it was kind of when, it was the same time, when I when I got like some award in like front of people, and I was like, whoa, like people like this person that was like qualified thought that I was good. You know, it's such a shallow thing in reality.
Yeah.
But like when you're a kid, that like changes you. That's like,
Yeah.
oh, like I can kind of, I worked hard and I got something because of it. You know, it was just those moments in high school where you see validation from your teachers, honestly, that supported me and that were just like, you got to keep going for it. You know, especially I got to give a huge shout out to my saxophone teacher in high school, Noah Drayblatt. Very lesser known dude in New York, but he taught me so well, and I can't thank him enough, because like it just, between him and my jazz band director, Jeffrey Taylor, I mean, like I couldn't have a more supportive group of people around me to tell me to keep going. You
Amazing.
know? Without that, I don't know if I would have kept going down the path, honestly. Because I would spend hours and hours, you know, like learning how to play like a seventh chord, you know, and like all these keys and stuff. And to hear that all that time and like work actually paid off, to me in high school was a big deal. So,
Yeah, beautiful to hear that encouragement. You know, you can do something to people, you know. But honestly, for me, it's kind of funny. It was kind of the opposite. Like I'd started playing alto in the 6th grade, and I was kind of getting serious about jazz by like 8th or 9th grade or something. And I was actually winning a lot of these type of young musician awards, going to a lot of these camps, but I kind of hated it. It didn't make me, I mean, it would inflate me for a moment, but usually I would talk myself out of it, like, oh, those people don't actually know what they're talking about.
Oh, wow.
You know, and like, it was like, what was the type of things I just think it actually means nothing, because you know, it was social media. You know, I would be on YouTube or Instagram, and I would be hearing all these people who are way beyond me, and then I was getting all these awards, and I was like, they don't know what they're talking about. Listen to all these people, right? I think I didn't have really any sense of musical confidence until at a certain point in college, where I had like really intrinsically known that I had put in work, you know. At a certain point in time of a certain amount of hours, where I kind of had to come to terms with that myself, that I've actually put in a lot of work into you know, this stuff, and now I feel confident. I mean, that's, you know, it's a constant struggle, of course, but I definitely feel better about that type of things than I ever did in high school, for sure. Social media, funny.
I mean, social media is ruins. I mean, I'll say also, yeah, that was like a moment. That was a defining moment that was like, okay, I should definitely try and go to college for this if I can. But you know, the back and forth is there throughout the entirety of the years, even now. You know, I mean, there's never a point when like our artist feels like fully confident, you know. And at the moment, I'm at a level where I feel like, okay, you know, game's on, you know, like that's it, you know. And I don't think I'll ever feel any different about it besides that, you know. It's a constant struggle, it's like you were saying.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think a practical point that helped me a lot, that might help anybody going through a similar thing. It sounds like you guys have had this in your life for longer than me, is just being a bit more of a varied person. You know, if all of your self-worth is attached to how well you play your instrument or your jazz, or jazz music, then that's a very slippery slope for your mental health. But if you are also, you know, you have personal goals of like how kind you are and giving you are to the people around you, maybe health goals, maybe business goals or financial goals or spiritual goals or what have you, and you have all these varied interests, like Odin clearly has, and Adam as well. It's like, you know, one bad day in the practice room doesn't mean you're a shit person, because you have all these other things in your life, you know, that you care about.
Yeah, I think something else that is important to be said about that is like, if all you do is the music, then what's informing your music? What is your music about? What are you saying?
Absolutely.
If that's all you do.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I'm like super lucky to be, I have like a great girlfriend, and we go out and we have fun. and we go out and we hike, and we go out and we like just do stuff. And I think that has informed my artistic perspective tremendously. Going out and doing stuff. You know, my freshman year, I don't think I went out and did stuff. I was in a dorm with my jazz friends, you know, doing my thing, you know, and it was cool. You know, I was getting like facility together. I was practicing a lot, you know, but I definitely think there's something to be said about just doing other things, you know, getting out in the world, like just living, being a person, you know, and it's just even with another person or just by yourself, you know, I don't want to make it seem like, you know, you can't be an individual and do this, because you absolutely can, you know. You can go like anywhere. You just have to like hop on a train and like do it, you know, wherever you are. I mean, New York is in particular, but there are trains everywhere, you know.
Yeah.
You have a car somewhere. Go drive and see something beautiful, you know. It's like, to me, that's really important, just because I don't think my music was nearly as informed, and it was very jazz sounding, you know.
Exactly.
Especially then, you know, it was super jazz, super modern jazz sounding, super jazz, you know. Even now, of course, that's in my, like, that's part of who I am, it's part of what I listened to in the past, you know. But it's like, I think in particular, living and just being has informed what compositions I enjoy the most, you know, that I've written, you know. It's just, that's where usually the inspiration comes from. The feeling of like the sun, for example, you know, that made me feel a certain way that made me want to write a tune. Why would I care about the sun if I was just practicing in the dark for like 6 hours, you know? I'd have no reason.
Dark.
I'm just like, damn, I can't play Lydian, you know? That's all I'd be thinking in the practice room. But yeah, that's kind of where I came to on that. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Maybe I don't know if I can share a recording, but there's this duo project that I've been checking out a lot lately, and just because you guys are a duo project also, I wanted to see what you guys thought of this. And yeah, so can I share audio on this?
You know how to do it with the share computer sound? It should
Oh
come
no,
through.
I think you disabled it.
Yeah.
It says host disabled, participant screen sharing.
Let's fix that.
Have you heard of Hella?
Okay,
One more time?
I think you got it
Hella?
now.
Hella? I think
Oh,
I
there.
have.
You have?
I think somebody may have shown this to me at some point, but it's very blurry, so you're definitely have to refresh my memory.
Okay. You're just gonna have to look at my computer screen, I guess, and I'll share it.
Cool.
Hey guys, while we're paused for a second, Odin, if you could turn down just like a slight hair, and if Adam,
You got it.
I know you said it was maxed out, so if that's
Yeah.
all we have,
I could just take a little step forward. We're good.
okay, that's better.
Definitely.
How's
Yeah.
this?
Speak again, Odin.
It's a little better now.
Split the difference.
Okay. How about
Okay.
there?
You guys spoke at the same time.
How about there? How's this?
Yeah, that's
1,
great.
2.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah, you can play it, Mike.
Okay.
That's incredible. Wow. It's actually funny that you have that Mary Halverson record up, because some of the guitar playing is reminiscent of hers, for me anyway.
Some of whose guitar playing?
The guitar
Spencer
playing we just listened to. Yeah.
Yeah, so normally the band is electronic. So this, I think Zach Hill's the drummer, Spencer Syme's the guitarist, and Zach Hill is using some kind of like a rod stick, I believe, and also Spencer's playing you can correct, I think he's like on an acoustic guitar, right? But maybe it sounds like a little harder than a regular acoustic, so with like metal strings, or I'm not sure exactly, or
Yeah, I mean, it's probably some sort of steel string acoustic, but it doesn't sound like it has your usual steel string acoustic sort of strings.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
he's bending a lot more than I can on my acoustic guitar.
Like they might just have like maybe even round wounds for like an electric guitar in there, or they might have flat wounds on there, because just like there's not enough high end for it to, at least for me, to sound like round wounds. It sounds more like flat wounds to me. But I don't know. It's hard to tell.
could you explain
It's an interesting sound.
What's
So round wounds, just like the way round wounds are, is that there's a core, and then the core is wrapped with another wire, basically. With flat wounds, that wire either is flat, and then the wire would be flat. It's more like a ribbon that's wrapped around it, so the string is very smooth, whereas a round wound, it's got some ridges.
Yeah, but that actually, it's funny that album came up, because I saw you guys both had that you both some of your teachers, like some of the similarities with Mary Halverson, you guys both studied with, and I really like that album that Mary Halverson has, Thumbscrew, and and I actually heard that in it. You're playing Odin actually reminded me of that, and
Thank you.
and it's just like a very like a rawness that I like a lot, like
Thank you.
certain and there's a couple of songs on your album that it really brought that out nicely, and
Cool.
Spencer Syme on this record as well, because his other records are electric. He plays electric guitar, so it's a much different vibe, but I thought this album suited, obviously it's very different because of the instrumentation and stuff from you guys, but there were certain characteristics that reminded me of what you guys did. So I wanted to know what your thoughts were on that song, and what do you think? Did you guys like it, or?
Yeah, I thought that was insane. I think their commitment to everything is absolutely badass, and I want to get some of that.
That's a good way to put it.
It's like the intensity.
Commitment to everything.
I mean, really, like there was not a single thing where I was like, no, I didn't believe that. Like
Commitment, yeah.
and just like intention. I mean, that's especially
Conviction.
Just so much conviction in like every single thing they played, and like that's what I like tell all my students. But that's what I tell myself too. It's so hard to actually do that. It's incredibly difficult to be that committed to every musical idea, and the intensity and like the stuff, the instrument, like to me, like the rhythmic counterpoint that was going on all the time, even though it was out of time at like many moments, it all felt like the flow was so strong that it didn't feel like it at all. It felt so good in the moments where it didn't. There were just so many moments in that where I was like, whoa, like what just happened. And just a lot of like magic and conviction in that recording. Honestly, it was really cool. Definitely send that to me.
Okay, yeah. It's funny because this record is several of their more popular songs, and they recorded their first record in like 2002, Hold Your Horses, and then they recorded another record, The Devil Isn't Red, I think maybe like 2 years later. And then this record took a few of those songs or pieces and they recorded this like in 2006, and the arrangements are almost exactly the same. So there's very little improvisation, which yeah. So hearing how you guys, when we first started talking about how there's a lot of more improvisation in what you guys do, it was interesting because I heard similarities in like more of a through composed piece, like the way that they did. But it's interesting that you can get to that sound as well with improvisation as well. But yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that recording was insane. Please send that to me. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't heard of. I definitely. I thought I did. I definitely have not heard of that. I thought I did, but I definitely didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just wow. Yeah. Who's the drummer playing again?
Zach Hill.
Cool. Yeah, I've got to check that out. It's cool.
Favorite duo
he's-
records? Anybody?
I mean, I'm a sucker for Ben Van Gelder.
Oh,
and
yeah?
Run Your Boss. Yeah. They're too, like, I think, like, alive. Like, they're some of my favorite musicians. Yeah.
Wow,
And
that's
they
cool.
released a duo cut called Mokumin Hi-Fi recently. I think it was this year or the year before. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one. And also, there's a great one with Mark Turner and Miguel Plug, who's a guitarist. It's also 2 saxophone guitar duos, but I mean, that's just, at the moment, that's my instrumentation, and like that's what I like listening to, you know.
Wow.
For a good duo, but there's so many more that I have yet to check out, you know. There's also some good Anthony Braxton stuff too. I'm pretty positive that.
Say that again?
Yeah.
Anthony
Yeah,
Braxton, you said?
Yeah, Anthony Braxton duo palindrome. Is that the record? Is that what it's called? Or-
I think he's got a few of those out.
Yeah.
I've also got, I think it's a couple hours long, but it's a duo concert, him with Joe Morris. It might even be something like two-hour sets. I remember it's really long, but just the first record that came to mind for me is this record called New Ancient Strings. I think it might be my all-time favorite duo record, and it's a duo of Kora musicians from West Africa. Humani Diabate with Palake Sissoko. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Like it's and it's actually something that Craig Weinrib recommended to me a couple of years back.
Wow.
That's also one of my favorite duos. I don't know why I went straight to like the jazz stuff, because I'm listening to that like just as much, if not more.
New
Yeah.
Ancient Strings by who?
Humani
Okay.
Diabate. He's like one of the. I think he might be the most well-known living kora player, maybe the most well-known kora player overall. But it's him with this other kora player, and that other kora player, Alake Sissoko, has a record out. I don't know what it's called, but they've got an NPR tiny desk of it. Him with this cellist, Vincent Segal, and that music's also really cool.
Wow. Lots of good stuff to check out. Adam, if you like Ben Van Gelder, you probably like this Lee Konitz duo record with Red Mitchell. The album's called I Concentrate on You. It's like very
I'm gonna check that
influential on my approach and sound, and for Ben Van Gelder as well. He's like kind of worships
Yeah.
Lee,
Yeah.
you know,
I mean, I
as
do
we
too.
all do.
Yeah. How can you not?
Yeah.
I gotta check that one out. Yeah.
That one's
cool.
really, it's pretty freaky because Red Mitchell, he doesn't tune his bass E, A, D, G. He tunes his bass in fifths.
Oh.
And so he has like all these like crazy like open fifth, like kind of like boom. It's like really
Wow.
out of this world bass playing.
Cool.
Um,
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna check that out.
I heard, side note, I heard that at jam sessions, when he was hosting, he would call like unsuspecting bass players who didn't know. He would call them up and just like not say anything, just
Wow.
watch them fold, I guess. And I guess all the established guys knew to like retune it or just do what they can. but yeah, it was like a thing with him.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, I've never even heard of that record. I gotta check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then another one recommended to me by the late Frank Kimbrough was Red and Black, which is Dewey Redman and Ed Blackwell, which is freaking nuts and beautiful and soulful and wide open. So that's some duo recommendations. Adam, I wanted to, selfishly a little bit, I wanted to, you could have just kept playing bass clarinet and bassoon, but something about the alto made you stick there. And I'm an alto lover myself, so what was it about that horn that made you feel like, wow, everything else was preamble, this is the deal?
That's funny. I mean, I even with Craig, I had been having talks and like lessons about like what my voice is, and in the sense of what instrument would I choose, not about individualism, just about like what horn am I hearing in my head whenever I just go somewhere. And for me, it was funny. A friend of mine from high school had lent me like his dad's like old alto, and then I was playing that in like my basement, and it was pretty bad. It was some like Russian horn, and I was kind of struggling, but I was like, man, but I'm having so much fun. Like this is the most fun that the saxophone ever felt. My teacher in like middle school was trying to get me to like improvise on tenor saxophone. Like I really didn't want to do it. But then I started playing alto, and then I played just stuff that like I liked and was listening to. Like I played like Naima when I was like in 9th grade for fun, and I was playing I was playing like Blue Train and just having fun, like totally folding everywhere, but like I was having fun, and I hadn't had fun with any of the others, Soprano was like, oh, I can kind of keep this in tune and play with the trumpets in like the back of the jazz band. Barry was like, I have all these parts and I have like this one feature tune, like that's it, and then tenor was just kind of like, it's tenor, and then alto, I was like, oh wow, alto's fun. So it was very like, it was young, it was kind of just like a youthful thing where it's like, this is like the one that I had the most fun playing, so I'm gonna do this one. I just want to mention too, like bassoon for this project, I'm trying to incorporate soon. It's still there, and I still have it, and I still practice it. I had my first bassoon gig like ever that I was paying like this year. Actually, it was awesome with Morgan Guerin. It was super fun. But it's like I hadn't used it since high school until then. And then since I got it ready for that, I was like, wow, this instrument's great. In high school, I hated it because it's so hard.
Right.
It's one of the most difficult instruments to play, but I really like kind of fell back in love with it. So I'm actually kind of I'm gonna head there next, I think.
Cool. Looking forward to hearing that.
But yeah, I mean, bass clarinet and low reeds, I just have like a love for. But it's like
yeah,
for me
bass
at this
clarinet.
moment, I'm like most in love with like low reeds, and then alto saxophone at the moment. But yeah, I don't know. Alto was just like, I was young and I was like, that's the one that made me happy, and then it was fun to play, So from there, I just kept playing it, and then just kind of related. It's what I started to hear in my head and like what I wanted. So
Yeah.
Bassoon is such an earth quality as well.
Definitely.
I find with the low reed instrument, so it really suits nicely with like the inspirations that you guys have for your music too.
Yeah,
That'd be a cool duet album. Bassoon.
Bassoon and guitar. Oh.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Nice.
Just have to learn how to flick all the keys properly. It's so weird. Yeah.
There's a song of mine actually that we recorded in one of my ensembles, and Adam's all over it on that instrument.
On bassoon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
It's fun.
Is there any
But yeah, that
plans
was
for releasing that?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
If the two of you want to hear it, I can
Yeah. Send
hand
it over.
to you.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm gonna try and start bassooning some more because it's just so cool. But it's hard.
Yeah.
And like also crafting the reed, huge process.
Wow.
Like you gotta file that thing. I used to make them from scratch. It's a crazy process. A lot of details, a lot of work. But I mean, luckily I just bought some like store-bought ones, like filed them a bit, and they're okay because I definitely couldn't do it without my teacher. But wow, the process takes like 2 weeks. It's a very committed and like difficult. You have to be so disciplined, and I definitely was not. When I was in high school, I was like, oh, screw this, like whatever, bassoon, stupid. But then it was getting me into all the stuff when I was like in early high school though. That's why I kept playing it. And you get the validation from the teachers like we were talking about earlier, and they were all like, no, you have to keep playing bassoon. You can't stop. Like colleges will give you an exorbitant amount of money if you go and play bassoon.
Yeah, that's always
like,
the thing they say.
It's like there was like keep playing bassoon, and I'm like, okay, I hate this, but sure. But yeah, in high school for me, it didn't click just because I hated it. Straight up, I quit my lessons. I was like, this sucks. Orchestral music is awesome, but I hate the bassoon. And here I am like playing like lead bassoon in the orchestra, like, yeah, this is cool, and he's like relying on me and stuff, and I was like, just please, like, I don't want to do this anymore, but he was like, no, but like you have to keep doing it. It was just such a thing. It was like I had to play bassoon, so I was doing bassoon and alto at like the same time, but I was like, all I wanted was the alto saxophone. So yeah,
that's hilarious. It's kind of interesting, like you were saying about how much work goes into just crafting your reeds and flicking your keys and stuff. Like the amount of work we do to play some of these things. I mean, the sax is relatively low maintenance. With our reeds, we have our own issues, but like brass instruments, like they warm up for, and do long tones and buzzing, and just so they can, the things we go to just to make music and art.
And let's definitely not exclude like everyone else. Like, I mean, I'm sorry, he has the hardest job in the world for this group. Like,
oh my god, yeah. Like
a full rhythm section on one dude. Like, I have the easy part. Like, I always think that. I mean, more recently, I'm just beginning now to learn like what the rhythm section does, like fully. Like I'm learning how to play some guitar just so I can know what it's like. I'm like writing parts.
Yeah, you sound good. I heard some of that stuff. You sound.
I'm trying to get it together, man. It's hard. But it's a work in progress. Like that, like piano, some drums. I want to get a bass if I can. It's like I want to know the struggles because I, as a horn player, always like we want to just be. Oh yeah, I'm the horn player. I'm the front man. Like I'm me. Look at me. But like no, like it's so about everyone else. It's so about. Because they have the hardest job, I always feel like as the horn player, I have such an easy thing to do, and it's just, make the rhythm section sound good, which I'm finding is a lot harder than I thought. So, at first you think it's just take a good solo, but it's not even close.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a great quote from Buster Williams that he said in a masterclass, and he was saying, "These instruments aren't your friends." And it always stuck with me because it really is. I mean, especially if you think of him with his bass, and I'm sure with guitar too. It's just starting out with getting like working up those calluses, and on drums, just the physicality of it, and the reeds and stuff, and it's not a fun process by a lot, but also it is a fun process. And yeah, you just have to be patient with it. But you guys are, I don't know who was hinting at it, but yeah, just like the job of being in a duo, especially for you, Odin. Like, is there any both of you guys, like, what challenges did you guys feel being in a duo project? I mean, I know you guys both had a lot of experience playing together, but it's definitely, I mean. Normally, if a band has 4 people and now it's only condensed into 2, then you have a lot more responsibilities on your plate in terms of parts and stuff. So maybe guys can talk a little bit about that.
Well, I guess maybe my interest in this sort of started fall semester sophomore year when I took my first lessons with Craig Weinrib, but something he said to me, I think during our first lesson, or maybe second lesson, but something he said was that like a goal is to play as the full orchestra in any situation, and like unifying what your improvisation, like over form or otherwise, sounds like, and what your comping behind a soloist sounds like. And for me, also with the interest in West African music and with very rhythmic music with multiple layers happening, it's like I just like learning multiple things, learning songs or things where there are multiple rhythmic lines happening at the same time. It's like I don't know. I just really enjoy it. I think that being able to do that on the guitar is a helpful thing to do. I think I liken it to the way that a drummer would work on coordination. It's not about coordinating all my limbs, but it's about finding how I can do it on the neck with one hand as opposed to a piano player. I have to like find all the notes in one hand.
Right.
Or with open strings. But it's about doing that and then coordinating my right hand and my left hand.
I hear that. I heard that a lot today. Was that? I mean, what's the word? In conglomerate, like the rhythm is like dun 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 ba dun 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 boom. But really, it sounds like you're kind of thinking of each finger kind of independently. Boom boom boom, and the boom boom.
Yeah,
that's cool.
So the thing that I was doing for that video we got earlier today, it's original of mine, but all the rhythms, everything in it, except for like the last measure where it's sort of rubato, all comes out of Elizabeth Cotton and her music. She pioneered a style that's now known as cotton picking, where you have constant eighth notes in the bass with the thumb, and then you have the alternate 16th notes, so the offbeat 16th notes in your fingers.
Yeah, it's
so
such
it's
a
like
good record.
So it's like you're hitting all 16th notes, but you're alternating where the thumb is hitting every other, and then one finger. She played like this, but with her left hand, and she held a right-handed guitar upside down, so she hit the low strings with her finger and the high strings with her thumb, whereas I do low strings with my thumb, and then I'll use either of these two fingers.
Wow. Yeah, I was watching the video and listening to the rhythms, and it has kind of like an Americana sound to it, but there was something very driving and rhythmic. It was really mesmerizing to watch. So it's cool to hear your inspiration. Elizabeth Cotton, you said?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, very cool. I'll have to listen to that as well.
Yeah,
she's
amazing.
I've seen Julian Lodge play live as well, and something I really remember from his performance as well is having that independence of maybe two separate lines, or really accompanying himself well alone. So
yeah.
Well, he's very studied in, like, I believe anyway. I've never spoken with him, but it sounds like he's played a lot of Bach, and tried to adapt that to the guitar, and that's kind of where he's coming from a little bit. It seems to me anyway. It's also very cool.
Yeah. And like other things I work on and I guess listen to and things like that, the Kora music also is a huge inspiration for me, and I'm sort of still in the process of figuring out how to like absorb, how to learn from that such that it affects the way that I improvise and like the way that I approach the instrument, as opposed to just learning the parts.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, but it's like the way that most of that music is they have the way that they hold their instrument is, they've got like a gourd on the bottom, and a pole comes up with the strings that come out of it like this, and they have their thumbs on this little thing, and then they use their two fingers like this. But they'll have a low note going, like a cycle with a low note, or they'll hit it on the one, or like a one of the measure and then some other subdivision or some other place during the bar. They'll have a low part and then an accompaniment part in the middle, and then they improvise on top of that, all at the same time.
Yeah, wow.
And then it's like, sort of with all African music, everything is constantly changing. So the accompaniment part is a little different every time they do it. The bass is a little different every time they do it. And they're improvising while all that's happening.
Wow, a lot to learn from other parts of the world. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I took a class of djembe music from Guinea and Senegal when I was
Incredible.
in Amsterdam, and it
Wow.
was also, how to describe, it was exhilarating, really.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
it was my first time like performing a concert on an instrument that wasn't like, I guess, saxophone, clarinet, or flute. And I was playing djembe, and it was like just so much fun. And this, everybody has their own part that they're responsible for. And you really see how jazz and Black American music, came from these various roots. And it's also been a fascination of mine. For a period of time was trying to like learn about Yoruban music and Ewe music of like Ghana and Benin and Togo and that kind of area. Also, still no idea how that has affected my saxophone playing or any of that, but it's been very personally enriching and also eye-opening rhythmically.
Yeah.
But I now that you mention these influences, I do hear this type of independence in the way you're playing on the record, and that's very cool. That's very cool.
Thanks so much, man. That
So
means a lot to me.
for sure. So about Sunday, I mean, we've talked a lot about the record and the various influences that have gone into this group, which are very cool. But can you talk about some of my understanding is that you guys are going to be premiering a lot of new music that wasn't on the Ashland record. Can you tell me a little bit about or is it similar in vibe, or is this part of the next project, or?
Well, if I could just say something real quick, and I'll hand
Please.
it over to Adam. I think we're doing like 3 tunes from the record and like 8 or more that are new.
Oh wow,
So it's like mostly new material.
fantastic.
Yeah, and for me anyway, I don't know if Adam feels the same, but it was almost like the recording of Ashland was like, okay, now I've recorded this music that I wrote over the past year or two, I can move on.
Mm-hmm.
So everything new now is like, I feel like I've entered into this new phase with my writing. And except for one tune that's a rework of an even older tune of mine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
For me too, it's also a presentation of a lot of new stuff. I think for this concert, I mean, I spent like the entirety of like my time at home writing Odin guitar parts and just trying to write guitar parts for the first time. Just like
Nice.
plucking it out, seeing like, hey, how do you play this? Does that sound good? And then also, I'm also pretty inspired by like the West African music, because honestly, like we check out a lot of the same things because he just knows so much cool stuff, and I'm like, I need to check out that.
Yeah.
And then I just go do that, and then like that's it.
That's
you
a
know?
good relationship right there. Odin's the
And then-
hookup for the
100%.
West African gems.
Yeah, 100%. And then sometimes vice versa, Duke Ellington
Absolutely.
and such.
Yeah,
But
dude.
I mean,
Absolutely.
anyway, I'm just like, I've been inspired by this stuff, and I wrote one tune in particular that I'm pretty proud of that's kind of in that style, that I thought of while I was in Cape Cod many years ago, like looking at the stars like the first time in my life, and honestly the only time I've seen them that clear, and it was pretty
Wow.
amazing. And I saw like Orion like so clearly, and that vision still for me is like ingrained in my head, and I couldn't photograph it, of course, but like it was just beautiful. And this tune just kind of puts together my love for like the stars with West African music for some reason. I don't know. It just happened, and I was like, oh, this feels great. And then Odin was like, this kind of reminds me of this, and I'm like, no way. I actually like won. Great. And I was surprised that's what he thought of, and then I listened back to New Ancient Strings. I was like, oh wow, it is somewhat similar. Cool. But I wanted to. This is definitely for me the next step in my writing. It's a lot of new stuff. Yeah, and it's just like we're just kind of refining the sound. I'm not sure if this will be on whatever next thing that we do. But it sure is a whole lot of new music that we're super excited to present. That we've been rehearsing pretty diligently and just like figuring out today. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
We're very excited to hear it all. Yeah. So ticket links for Sunday are should be in the description if I remember to put them there. If not, it's at bravesound.org/shop.
Shop.
Yeah, we go live at 3:00. The tickets are pay whatever you can, and the proceeds go to support what we're doing here at Brave Sound, as well as Adam and Odin themselves. So if you enjoyed this conversation and want to hear more, please tune in on Sunday. I guess we can end with
Flash round?
yeah, okay. Well, I wanted to ask them real quickly before, like, what I mean, it's hard to have like plans and goals while we're in a pandemic and we don't even know what the world's going to look like next month. But if you had any to share, like upcoming records after Sunday, or even personal goals for the new year, I'd love to hear them.
Well, I've sort of been toying with the idea of releasing a solo record.
Right, you mentioned that.
I do not have anywhere near all the material yet, and definitely one of my goals is to learn how to program some drums really well. And I
Killing.
want to really assemble a library of drum sounds that are unique to me. So like recording some sounds myself. I think I have some drumsticks somewhere, maybe finding some mallets, just hitting a bunch of stuff, putting together an assortment, and then really learning how to do it, writing some more music and programming drums and seeing how it is. Because so much of the music that I've written over the past couple of years, and so much of who I am as a musician, is about like how to play with a drummer. I feel like that'll be a thing that I'll be working on my whole life. It's like how to play with a drummer as a drummer would play with another drummer. And so like in this whole situation, I feel like I just don't have access to a drummer to like play with on a regular basis anymore. So I just want to learn how to program what I want myself.
Wow. Yeah, very excited to hear that. That sounds like a very cool project.
For this year, I mean, I'm going to delay my graduation by a semester, which to me is also somewhat of a surprise. I did not know that the pandemic would go on this long, but it has. And I would just like to have like a well-recorded senior recital and such. My parents just kind of want that for me, and I think it's the right thing to do. So this semester, this large time I now have to myself, I'm intending on studying counterpoint pretty deeply. I took a class on it, but I really did not have the time to fully commit, because it's such a dense topic. It's so hard, it's so difficult. There's so many books and there's so many texts to read to be
Have you gotten
informed.
the Fuchs?
Yep,
I don't know
I
how
have
to.
Fuchs, yeah.
Yeah, that one's deep.
and we
Dense.
went from first to fifth species in that class. Now I want to go back and really do it daily, like many great composers like Ravel, Messiaen. They would just wake up in the morning and just do counterpoint, and then they would compose. And I'd like to get deeper into that. And I'm also generally trying to learn how to play guitar better, just for the sake of writing parts for Odin, and also just writing on the piano in a more just in a better fashion. But in terms of projects, I'd like to release a quintet record in the future, quintet or sextet record in the future. But at the moment, that's pretty far off. It's probably coming within like the next 1 or 2 years. It's down the line, not yet. And at some point, definitely another duo project. There's nothing better than playing with this guy. So I just gotta keep at it and just gonna write more music for this instrumentation, because this is who I can play with right now in the pandemic, and it feels great. So just gonna keep doing that, exercising, meditating, etc., keeping care of myself. But yeah, just hard at work.
Beautiful. Yeah.
If I could add one thing onto my goals, I have been thinking about this for a long time, and I want to start teaching lessons. So I don't have any students or anything right now. So if anybody wants guitar lessons or is in the market,
Yeah. Anybody
available.
listening, just check this record out. They'll want to see what's up. Cool. Well, I'll speak for myself. It's been a pleasure hearing about you guys' very various interests and your background and how you got to this point. And you know, like Adam, for example, I've known you for like 3 years, but it's never been the case that we've had the opportunity to sit down for 2 hours and just discuss.
Definitely not.
Yeah, in the hustle bustle of regular life, stuff like this doesn't get to happen. So very thankful for that. And Ona as well, you know, known you for now 24 hours, and I think I understand a lot more. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, it's very much the same for me. Adam, I've definitely known you longer than Austin has, right?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. Like
It's
probably
going
5
back
years.
5 years, something like that. Yeah. But no, this was a really nice conversation, and just to see how, just because we went to different schools, and there's been a lot of time gap between since we like last spoke and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's nice to see like how we all grow and how much commitment we put into the things we love, and it's nice to see both of you and how passionate you guys are about what you do, and it's inspiring to me in a lot of ways.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, it's great to hear from you too. I want to hear about you more. I want to interview you next, but you know, maybe some other time.
Maybe another time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Shall we
Let's do it.
do a 90-second flash round? Okay, so
Oh boy.
I'll explain this. So, it's pretty self-explanatory, but yeah, we just like throw questions at you guys in 90 seconds. So I'm gonna start the timer.
Oh, you got it? Okay.
Who's going
Yeah.
first? Oh shoot. Okay.
Uh,
Whoever answers first, I guess.
yeah.
You go first.
All right, great.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Favorite fruit?
Dude, what a question. Cantaloupe.
Raspberry.
Oh, you're both. Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. Favorite Latin American country that's not Brazil?
Chile.
Ecuador.
Okay.
Actually, wait, I think. Wait, did I mess it up?
No.
Okay, cool. Chile's in South America, though.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll go with Honduras instead. I did a whole project on that when I was a kid.
Wow.
Excellent.
Nice.
Yeah.
Favorite state?
Maine.
Wow. Nice.
I'm gonna have to go with New York or California.
Basic.
Yeah, sorry. New York's the one I know best, and California had a very nice vacation there.
Cool.
Back in October.
What's your favorite type of cheese?
Well, I'm vegan, so
Oh, me as well. So vegan
File
cheese.
Life
Why'd you ask that,
has
Austin?
a vegan
Yeah.
cheese that is really
Cashew
really
cheese.
good. Yeah, sure.
I have no clue, like American or pepper jack, like very. I don't have cheese very often.
Oh.
All right, that's time.
That's time?
Yeah.
Give him another one. That was unsatisfying.
Okay. Favorite TV show?
The Great Pretender on Netflix. Great anime. Strongly recommend. Like Netflix original anime, but like real good.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I might have to go. Yeah. I'm gonna have to go with Avatar: The Last Airbender. All
no, I
time
should've gone with
fave.
that. Oh.
Or
No, that's mine.
The Office is number 2. U.S. Office number 2.
Nice.
Huh. Nice.
I
Okay.
switched to Avatar.
Those are 2 shows that I can always return to.
Cool. You want to close this out, Mike?
Sure. Yeah. So, for those who are listening now, thank you for tuning in and sticking with us this far. We just had a great conversation with Adam and Odin, and they'll be playing a concert with us this Sunday at 3 p.m. So once again, if you want to check out the concert, it's going to be live streamed at 3 p.m. Go to bravesound.org/shop to check it out. Also, it is in the email if you are on our email list. If you aren't and you want to sign up, go to the website to sign up for the email list to receive future notifications for shows that we do. But yeah, so we'll see you guys there. Yeah.
Have a great night, everybody.
Can't wait.